Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a relationship that shapes basically everything in modern India, the constant dance between society, the state, and the market. Understanding this isn't just about acing your exams. It's about understanding the forces that decide everything from the price of your groceries to the entire future of our economy.
So let's jump right in with the big question, the one that drives economic policy, and let's be real, a huge chunk of your syllabus. How do we actually measure the things that matter most, like poverty, growth, and inequality? Getting these definitions right is absolutely the key to unlocking this whole topic. First up, let's get our key players straight on the board. We have society, the state, and the market. I want you to think of them as the three legs of a stool that modern India is built on. If one is shaky, the whole thing can wobble. So understanding their unique roles is crucial. Now, society isn't just a bunch of people living in the same place. No, it's the complex web of relationships, our traditions, our culture, the shared values that kind of bind us all together. And this also includes really powerful groups like NGOs and all sorts of community organizations that can put pressure on both the government and big corporations. Then we have the state. Think of the state as the referee in this big game. It's the government, it's the courts, the police. For us in India, this is our parliament, our judiciary. They're the ones who set the rules of the game that everyone else, society and the market, has to play by. And finally, we have the market. And I'm not just talking about your local vegetable market here. The market is the entire system of buying and selling, from the huge trades on the Bombay Stock Exchange all the way down to you ordering food on an app. It's the engine that moves resources around based on supply and demand. Okay, so if the market is such an efficient engine, why does the state have to step in at all? I mean, why doesn't it just let the market do its thing? Well, the answer is a concept you absolutely 100% need to know for your exams: market failure. You see, the simple truth is markets are not perfect. A classic textbook example is a factory that pollutes a river. The factory makes its profit selling its products, right? But society, the people living downstream, they pay the price with dirty water. That cost is external to the factory's accounts, and that right there is a perfect example of market failure. So to fix these kinds of market failures, the state has a whole toolkit with 6 key jobs. This starts with the real basics, like making sure people honor their contracts, and it goes all the way to providing public goods like roads and national defense that a private company just wouldn't build. And for a country like India, its most critical role is to actively work to reduce poverty and inequality. All right, let's get a bit more technical. Measuring poverty is a huge topic in your exams, so you're going to want to pay close attention here. How do economists take this massive, complex issue like poverty and, well, turn it into numbers that we can actually work with? They have a very specific toolkit for this. First, you've got to understand this key distinction: absolute versus relative poverty. Absolute poverty is about pure survival, not having enough food, clean water, or a roof over your head. This is, of course, the main focus in India. Relative poverty is different. It's about being poor compared to the average person in your society. The most basic tool is the headcount ratio. It's really simple. It's just the percentage of the population that's below the poverty line. But here's its critical weakness, and this is a great point to make in your answers. It doesn't tell you how poor the poor actually are. Someone just 1 rupee below the line is counted exactly the same as someone with absolutely no income at all. So to fix that problem, we have the poverty gap ratio. Now, this tool is smarter. It doesn't just count the number of poor people. It actually measures the average distance their income is from the poverty line. So this gives us a much better sense of the depth of poverty in a country. And if we want an even more detailed, more nuanced view, we can use the squared poverty gap. Now, this is a really powerful tool because by squaring that gap, it gives much more weight to those who are furthest below the poverty line. It helps us understand the true severity of poverty and really focuses our attention on the most vulnerable people.
So how do we know if any of these poverty measures are actually any good? Well, Nobel laureate Amartya Sen gave us a set of principles, or axioms, to test them against. And for your exam, the key thing you need is this fantastic mnemonic, FTOMP. It stands for focus, symmetry, transfer, monotonicity, and population independence. You'll definitely want to remember that one.
Okay, now let's shift gears from poverty to inequality.
Now, they're related, for sure, but they are different. See, inequality isn't about a specific poverty line. It's about how income and wealth are spread out across the entire population. And you guessed it, we've got specific tools to measure this, too. The main visual tool we use here is called the Lorenz curve. Just picture a graph. A perfectly straight diagonal line would represent perfect equality. The bottom 10% of people have 10% of the income, the bottom 50% have 50%, and so on. But in the real world, the curve always sags below this line. And the bigger that gap, the bigger that bow in the curve, the more inequality there is in a society. Now, the really cool part is we can take that entire visual gap in the Lorenz curve and capture it in a single powerful number, the Gini coefficient. It's a score that runs from 0 to 1, where 0 is perfect equality and 1 is perfect inequality. This makes it super easy to compare inequality across different countries or even track it in India over time. For example, the sample calculation from our source material gives us a Gini coefficient of 0.186. That one number tells us the precise degree of inequality in that specific dataset, and in this case, it's a relatively low level. So this brings us to a really critical question. What's the actual relationship between economic growth and inequality? Does growth make inequality better? Or does it make it worse? There's a famous theory on this, and we're going to see how it holds up when we look at India. This is the famous inverted U hypothesis, proposed by Simon Kuznets. His theory was that in the early stages of development, as a country starts to industrialize, inequality actually gets worse. But then, after a certain point, as the economy matures, that inequality starts to decrease, creating the shape of an upside-down U on a graph. Now, this table is a perfect example of why the methodology, the how you measure things, is everything in economics. Just look at these poverty estimates for the exact same year, 2011-12. The Rangarajan Committee's estimate is much higher because it used a broader definition of poverty, including essential spending on things like education and health, which the Tendulkar Committee's formula did not. And look, this isn't just some boring statistical debate. That difference in methodology means a difference of almost 100 million people. That's 100 million more Indians classified as poor under the Rangarajan formula. It's a powerful reminder that how we define and measure these concepts has huge real-world consequences. All right, time for your final revision checklist. These are the key takeaways. Make sure you can explain why the state steps in to fix market failures. You have to know the 3 poverty measures, P0 for the simple count, P1 for the depth, and P2 for the severity. Remember that F-stomp mnemonic for Sen's axioms. Be able to explain the Lorenz curve and the Gini coefficient for inequality. And finally, know the Kuznets U-curve theory and the critical difference between the Tendulkar and Rangarajan poverty numbers for India. So, we'll leave you with this final thought. The theories, they give us a possible roadmap. And the data, well, it tells us where we are right now. But will India's future actually follow the path of that Kuznets curve? Or will the choices we make today, through government policy, through civil society, and through the market, end up writing a completely different story?